They showed up with badges and suspicion. No warrant, no proof. But they had no idea who was waiting inside that house. If life in rural Lynn County, Oregon had taught Danielle Watkins anything, it was that peace wasn't something you were given. You had to fight for it. Not loud fights. Not the kind people see on the news. Quiet battles. Paperwork. Phone calls. Ignoring the stares at the local feed store. Carefully counting groceries while trying to stretch every dollar. It was a slow, tiring fight, but it wore you down all the same. It happened on a Thursday. Just an ordinary Thursday. At least, that's how it started. Danielle was out back behind the old barn, kneeling in the wet grass, working on a broken part of the irrigation line. Her hands were covered in mud. Her phone lay face down in the dirt next to her. Her youngest, Kendall, a thin, lively 9-year-old with a wild imagination, was barefoot, chasing chickens. Her teenage son, Reese, was probably inside the house, skipping his online classes again. But Danielle didn't have the energy to argue about it that morning. Then she heard tires crunching over the gravel. She stood up, brushing dirt from her jeans, and squinted as 2 sheriff department SUVs rolled up their front gate. Big, boxy, government trucks, the kind you'd expect in a car chase, not outside her quiet farmhouse. Her heartbeat quickened. She wasn't expecting visitors. She dropped her wrench and walked around the house to meet them. 2 deputies stepped out. One was a tall white man with mirrored sunglasses. He never took off. The other was younger, shorter, with a broader frame, possibly Latino, with a stiff jaw and nervous hands that kept fidgeting at his belt. Both wore bulletproof vests over their uniforms. Danielle kept her voice steady. "Can I help you, officers?" The tall one didn't smile. "We got a tip about stolen property on this land. Mind if we look around?" She blinked. "Stolen property? From where?" "Can't say. Tip was anonymous." "Do you have a warrant?" The younger deputy cleared his throat. "We just need to take a quick look, ma'am. Won't take long." She crossed her arms and planted her feet. "Without a warrant, you're not stepping on my property." There was a pause. The tall deputy glanced at the SUV, then at the house, then back at her. His body language shifted. Not aggressive, but like he expected her to give in. "We can always go get one," he said flatly. Danielle didn't move. "Then go get one." But they didn't leave. They stood there, making calls on their radios, whispering to each other while Danielle waited in the driveway, feeling that tight pressure in her chest. Not quite panicked, but close. Reese cracked the front door open and peeked out. "Mom, what's going on?" "Stay inside," she told him quickly. "Close the door." But the deputies saw him. The younger one stepped forward. "How many people are inside, ma'am?" Danielle narrowed her eyes. "Just my son." "Why?" "Just checking everyone's safe." "Safe from what?" she asked. "You think someone here's dangerous?" The silence after that said a lot. The tall deputy clicked his radio again and mumbled something she couldn't hear. 10 minutes later, a 3rd SUV arrived. Then a 4th. They were setting up like something big was about to happen. Like her small patch of dirt and weeds was suddenly some kind of threat. That's when Danielle knew something was wrong. Not just the tip, not just the visit. It was the way they looked at her house. Like it was dangerous. The way they looked at her. She wiped her hands on her jeans, fighting the urge to yell, to curse, to demand answers, because she knew what would happen if she lost her temper. She'd seen the stories, watched the videos. Black women don't get the benefit of the doubt in moments like this. But that didn't mean she was going to give in. "You're not searching anything without paperwork," she said again. The deputies didn't answer. They just started circling her property, eyeing the barn, the shed, the tools, snapping photos with their phones, watching her like she was about to run. Then one of them headed toward the house. Danielle stepped in front of him. She planted herself on the steps, blocking his path. He looked young, maybe in his early 30s, and wouldn't meet her eyes as he tried to move past her. She didn't move. "I said no," she told him. "Unless you have a warrant, you're not going to my house." The officer paused, hand resting near his belt. "Ma'am, if you work with us, this goes a lot smoother." She let out a bitter laugh. "Work with you? I'm not the one showing up over a rumor. with no paperwork. Reese opened the door again, more careful this time. His phone was in his hand, camera pointed right at them. Danielle saw it and gave him the smallest nod. She didn't tell him to stop. Not this time. The tall deputy walked over, his boots crunching loudly on the gravel. "Is there a problem here?" "No," Danielle said. "Not yet, but there will be if you keep trying to force your way in." He tilted his head. "You're being difficult." She took a slow breath. "I'm being a citizen who knows her rights." He didn't like that. He stepped in a little closer. "You hiding something?" "Danielle, clench your jaw." "Yeah, I'm hiding my patience." They locked eyes. Behind her, Reese raised his voice just enough. "I'm live on Instagram. The whole school's watching." The younger officer looked nervous now. His eyes flicked between Danielle and Reese's camera. The tension was starting to get to him, but the tall deputy wasn't backing down. "We're not here to hassle you, ma'am. Just trying to clear up a report." Danielle didn't respond. She just pointed toward the shed out back. "That's all you'll be looking at, and you'll do it from outside the fence." The men hesitated for a moment. Then the tall one muttered something under his breath and waved the others on. They spread out, circling the bar and the shed, snapping pictures, talking into radios. One of them leaned close to her tractor, like he expected to find something hidden inside the old engine. Reese stepped out slowly, still filming. He stood next to his mother. "Is this even legal?" he asked. Reese whispered, but Danielle didn't answer right away. Her hands were shaking a little, but she kept them low by her sides. "They're trying to push us," she said quietly. "Don't let them win." "They think we're dumb," Reese said. "They think we're alone." Out by the fence, Kendall finally realized something was wrong. He jogged over, feet still muddy, holding a broken toy truck in one hand. "Mom, who are they?" Danielle turned fast and dropped to one knee. "Baby, go back inside." Kendall hesitated, but then quickly turned and headed toward the porch. Reese stepped over and helped guide him the rest of the way in. Danielle stood back up, and then the shouting started. One of the officers near the shed called out, "Got something over here!" Danielle spun around. "What the—" The younger deputy rushed to the side of the barn, waving for the others. They gathered around an old blue tarp, half buried under broken equipment. One of them yanked it back and pointed. It was just a pile of scrap metal. Wires, an old engine block from a busted ATV that hadn't worked in years. "This looked familiar," the officer called out. Danielle walked over, confused. "Yeah, that's mine." "Where'd you find it?" "It came with the property," she said. He nodded like he didn't believe her. "Funny, we got a call about stolen utility panels. This stuff looks like it came from a construction site." Her voice was flat. "That's not what it is." The deputy pulled out his phone and started snapping more pictures. Danielle felt something rise in her, not full anger, something colder. Something like shame mixed with helplessness. Like they could twist the story however they wanted if they just said it enough times. "They're trying to make this stick," she whispered. She looked up and noticed the neighbors now. Mrs. Kinsey across the road was standing on her porch, arms crossed. Two teenagers Danielle didn't know were recording with their phones. A man in a pickup truck was parked at the far end of the dirt road, pretending not to watch, but he wasn't leaving either. Her life was now on display for half the county to see. One of the officers started walking toward the front porch again. Danielle lost it. "No, I told you, you're not going to my house." He ignored her and kept walking. "Hey," she snapped louder now. "This is harassment. You can't just—" And then, through the crackle of radios and heavy silence, she heard a calm voice. "I think y'all need to explain exactly what you're doing here." The officers turned. Danielle turned too and froze. Her brother, Colby Watkins, was standing at the edge of the gravel driveway, dust on his boots, a duffel bag over one shoulder. He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. The way he stood, the way he looked straight at each badge without blinking, it changed the whole mood. Colby hadn't said he was coming, but he was here now, and he had seen everything. The officers didn't know who he was. Not yet. And that changed everything. Colby didn't move. He just stood there, steady, watching them like he was weighing every breath they took. Danielle's throat tightened. It had been more than a year since she'd seen her brother in person. Afghanistan was his last stop, then Germany, then months of silence. Now here he was, like the universe had dropped him into the middle of this mess at the exact right time. The tall officer stepped forward, tried to figure out who Colby was. "Sir, this is an active investigation. We're responding to a call." Colby didn't blink. "That right? Because from where I'm standing, this looks a lot like harassment." "Do you live here?" "Nope," Colby said. "But she does." "That's my sister. And I've got some questions." The deputy didn't answer. Colby stepped forward slowly and dropped his duffel bag on the porch. "You got a warrant?" he asked. No one answered. "Then you're trespassing." The younger deputy shifted, looking nervous. "We got a tip about stolen construction materials. We're just doing our jobs." Colby gave a small nod. "Show me the paperwork." "We're waiting on a judge." "Then you wait in your car." Danielle had never been so still in her life. She could feel the power shift, not from yelling or threats, but from quiet control. Colby didn't need to explain who he was. It was already clear, but the officers didn't like it. The tall one stepping closer. "Sir, I need you to step back and let us handle this." Colby smiled, slow and steady. "You know what happens when people like me come home and find cops pressing their sister with no cause? We don't step back. We step in." That's when the younger deputy cracked. "Wait, Colby Watkins?" "Like Staff Sergeant Watkins." Colby looked at him and nodded once. The deputy's mouth opened, then shut. His eyes dropped for a second. The tall officer turned to him. "You know him?" "Yeah," the young deputy muttered. "He's kind of a legend." Danielle finally let out a quiet breath. Some of the neighbors had moved closer now, still pretending not to watch. One guy, she thought his name was Trent, was filming from behind a row of mailboxes, trying to stay hidden. A woman from down the road had driven by twice in the last 10 minutes. Real slow. It had turned into a show. Her life turned into a public scene. All because someone with no name, no face, and no proof decided she looked suspicious. She looked at Colby. "You couldn't have picked a better time to show up." He kept his eyes forward. "Didn't like the way you sounded on the phone last month. Figured I'd check on you in person." One of the officers finally walked back toward his vehicle. The others followed, talking into their radios again. But now, they moved differently, less sure of themselves. Colby wasn't done yet. "Y'all think a black woman trying to grow tomatoes and raise her kids is worth 4 patrol cars and a drone in the sky." Danielle looked up. Sure enough, the faint buzz of a small drone could be heard circling above, probably county surveillance. She hadn't even noticed it until now. The tall officer finally spoke again. "We'll be on our way." Colby tilted his head. "Oh, no, you're going to file a report," Colby said firmly. "And I want the case number before you leave." The officer paused, then mumbled something into his radio. A few minutes later, someone handed over a thin slip of paper like it didn't mean much. Colby folded it in half without looking at it. Only then did he give a small nod toward the cars. "You can go now." The sound of gravel crunched again as the engine started, one by one. The patrol cars slowly turned around and drove off. No sirens, no apology. Danielle stood with her arms crossed, watching until the last one disappeared down the road. She didn't say a word. Neither did Colby. Inside the house, Reese let out a sound, a shaky mix of a laugh and a sob. It was the first time all day Danielle realized just how scared her kids had been. The house was too quiet. Kendall had gone upstairs without saying anything, probably hiding under his blankets like he did during thunderstorms. Reese stood near the kitchen table, still holding his phone. The screen was dark now. He wasn't recording anymore. He just kept staring at the front door like he expected it to swing open again. Danielle slowly closed it and turned the lock. Colby dropped his bag by the wall and looked at her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, I'm good." He raised an eyebrow. "No, you're not." She let out a shaky breath and leaned against the counter. It's always like this out here. Little things, all the time. People calling code enforcement if the grass gets too high. Random county inspections. A flat tire gets reported as an abandoned car. But this, for cruisers, they were going to walk into my house with my kids here. Colby glanced around the kitchen. Same faded wallpaper, same shelves their dad built years ago, but the air felt heavier now. You're on their radar, he said quietly. I didn't do anything. You don't have to. Danielle covered her face with her hands. Her voice cracked. I'm trying, Colby. I really am. I'm doing the paperwork myself, filing every form. I even called that Grant's office in Salem about the soil rehab program. But no one helps unless there's a camera on. Out here, I'm just a black lady living on the old Watkins land. Colby didn't say anything for a moment. He pulled out a chair and sat down like they were back in their mom's kitchen, arguing about curfew again. Remember when I came home from basic training and the truck wouldn't start? He asked. Danielle frowned. Yeah, I remember. I was standing there in uniform, in our own driveway, and some guy from town came up and asked if I was here to clean the gutters. Said he thought the family had moved out. Danielle rubbed her temples. I wanted to break that guy's nose. But you didn't. No, because you told me not to. You said if I did, the story would flip from a stupid insult to a violent incident. That's how it works. Reese finally spoke up. That's still how it works. Colby turned to him. You okay? Reese nodded slowly. Yeah, I just didn't know what to do. I wanted to yell at them, but I thought filming was safer. Colby gave him a respectful nod. It was. Reese stared at the table. I kept thinking, what if they did go inside? What if they thought I was reaching for something? I had a spoon in my hand when I opened the door. Danielle's breath caught in her chest. Colby leaned back. That's why I came. I didn't trust it. Something didn't feel right. You didn't call, she said softly. Didn't want to give you time to tell me not to come. That mayor gave a tired smile. I've got 30 days before I check in again, he said. Might as well spend them fixing whatever they broke around here. Danielle's eyes filled with tears. They didn't break anything. Colby gave her a look. She looked away. Okay, maybe they cracked something. He stood up, walked to the sink, and glanced out the window. The neighbors had all gone back inside. The show was over. I know you don't want to start trouble, he said, but you're not invisible. They're testing you, seeing how far they can push. Danielle leaned her head against the fridge. What am I supposed to do, Colby? Sue the sheriff's department? Call the news? That just makes it worse. Sometimes it does, he said, but sometimes being quiet makes it worse, too. He looked around. You kept Dad's tools? She nodded. In the barn. What's left of it? He smiled faintly. Might take a look tomorrow. Feels good to fix something. There was a long pause. Then Reese asked, Uncle Colby, were you scared when you saw them here? Colby thought about it. No, I was angry. But you didn't yell. I didn't need to. Real strength doesn't come from yelling. It comes from knowing who you are and making sure they know it, too. Danielle looked at him. I don't think I have that kind of strength anymore. He walked over and put his hand on her shoulder. You do. You've just forgotten. That's why I'm here. But outside, someone was still watching, and Colby noticed. A black pickup truck crept by the house for the third time. Colby moved toward the front window, tracking the truck as it slowed again. Same truck, same dark windows, no visible plates. It rolled past the house like a wolf circling its prey. You know that truck? He asked. Danielle came to window. No, but it's been driving by since last week. Did you tell anyone? She shook her head. I figured it was just someone from the co-op or a neighbor. I didn't want to make a big deal. People who don't mean trouble don't circle a house like that. Colby went to his duffel bag, unzipped it, and pulled out a small, worn black notebook, then a slim, black case. Danielle crossed her arms. Please tell me you're not pulling out a gun. It's legal. It's locked. It's registered. I'm not carrying it around, but I'm not sitting in this house pretending they don't know what they're doing. Reese sat on the edge of the couch, eyes wide. Do you think they're coming back? Colby snapped the case shut again. Not tonight. They like daylight. They like an audience. Danielle rubbed her temples. This can't be my life. I'm growing lettuce. I'm raising kids. That's it. No one would do this to the Wilsons down the road. They did it, Colby said, because they thought you didn't have backup. There was a sudden knock at the door. 3 loud bangs. Everyone froze. Colby raised his hand toward Reese. Stay seated. Don't open anything. Danielle walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was a younger officer, the one who had recognized Colby's name, and he was alone. She cracked the door open, keeping the chain on. What? She asked, her voice sharp. The officer shifted awkwardly, holding his hat in his hands. I came back by myself. This isn't official. It's off the record. Danielle raised her eyebrows. Sounds like a bad idea. I wanted to say I'm sorry about earlier. She didn't respond. I've been on the force 2 years, he went on. They treat rural tips like the truth out here. It's easier than actually investigating. And he paused, looking at the porch. They told us this place was high risk. They said we should expect someone armed. Danielle's eyes narrowed. You mean expect someone black? The officer looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Colby appeared behind Danielle, arms crossed. So what now? You hand her an apology and that's supposed to fix it? The officer took a slow breath. No, I just wanted to do the right thing as a person. Danielle finally unlocked the door, but didn't open it all the way. If you really want to help, put it in writing. Tell me who made the call. He shook his head. I can't. Anonymous tip lines protect the caller. Of course they do, Colby muttered. The officer looked at him closely. You really are him, huh? Colby didn't reply. I read about what happened outside Romani. Whole convoy got hit. You dragged 2 soldiers out under fire. Took a bullet in the leg. Colby gave a dry laugh. And now I'm here, standing guard over tomato plants. The officer didn't know what to say to that. Danielle broke the silence. Look, you seem like a decent guy. But next time, don't come out here with guns unless you have proof. Not just because it's me. Because there are kids here. He nodded. I get that. Do you? She asked. He swallowed. I'm trying to. She closed the door without another word. Inside, she leaned against it, letting out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Colby walked past her into the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water. Reese looked at them both. Do you think they're going to come back? Maybe, Colby said. Danielle joined him at the counter. What do we do then? Colby filled the glass. We film. We file reports. We call the press if we have to. You have every right to live here, to grow what you want, to raise your boys without being treated like a danger. Danielle sighed. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, Colby said, but it's not impossible either. That night, Colby sat outside on the porch, the dogs lying at his feet, a bat resting across his lap just in case. Danielle sat beside him. The moon hung low over the fields. You think Dad would have known what to do? She asked quietly. Colby shook his head. No, but if they tried anything, he would have stood in their way, just like you did. Danielle gave a faint smile. Yeah, I guess I did. And as the wind moved across the grass, she realized something deep inside. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone out here, and that made all the difference. By morning, the black truck hadn't come back. The chickens were noisy again. Kenna was up early, just like always. Reese stood at the sink, drinking the milk straight from his cereal bowl. The house felt almost normal. Almost. But Danielle moved slower now. She didn't jump at the door, but she still checked through the blinds, twice, before stepping outside with her coffee. Colby was already in the barn. She could hear him hammering, probably fixing that sagging door she'd been putting off for months. That steady sound was comforting. Later, She joined him, arms crossed, watching as he worked. "Thanks for yesterday," she said, "and for not giving me a lecture." He glanced at her. "Why would I lecture you?" "I don't know. For staying quiet too long. For thinking I could handle everything alone." "You've been handling it," he said. "That's the problem. You shouldn't have to." She smiled, small and tired. "I used to think being strong meant doing everything by myself, keeping it all inside." "Strength isn't silence," Colby said. "It's knowing when to stand and when to let someone stand with you." She let that sink in. "There's going to be another day like that," she said. "Sooner or later." "Probably," he agreed. "But now you've got video. You got neighbors who saw it. You got a report on file. And you got someone who's not going anywhere." Danielle walked over and leaned against the barn wall, looking out across the field. The soil still needed work. The fences still sagged. Bills were still waiting. But it didn't feel so impossible anymore. "I used to think living out here would make me invisible," she said. "Turns out it just makes the spotlight harder to get away from." Colby nodded. "Then we make the spotlight shine the other way." She looked at him. "How?" "Make sure when they watch, they see someone who won't back down. Someone who knows her rights. Someone who is backup. That's the kind of story that makes them think twice next time." Danielle stepped outside, her boot sinking slightly in the dirt. Kendall ran past, chasing a stray dog, barefoot again. Reese followed, laughing and filming on his phone. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. She took a breath, deeper than yesterday. Sometimes the strongest kind of power is quiet. It's in saying, "I'm still here," no matter how many times the system tries to push you out. If you're watching this, maybe you felt that pressure. Maybe you've seen someone you love treated like a threat when all they were doing was living. Stand with them. Speak up. Be someone's backup. Because no one should have to fight alone, especially not at home. Know your rights. Film everything. Call your local leaders. And if you've got someone like Colby in your life, don't wait for things to fall apart. Invite them in.